Faith is not a weak whisper of hope. It is the daring assumption that what you desire is already yours. The world may call it madness, but I tell you, it is the only true sanity. For everything you now see was once unseen, sustained only by the unwavering faith of the one who imagined it. Faith is not waiting for proof. Faith is the proof. It does not ask for permission from facts, nor does it beg for validation from appearances. Faith stands tall in the unseen and declares, "It is done." When you clothe yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are living in the reality of your desire before it has appeared, and that unseen state will harden into fact. Do not confuse faith with idle wishing. Wishing looks outward and wonders if something will come. Faith looks inward and knows it already is. The moment you assume your desire as natural, the subconscious accepts it and moves all of creation to mirror it back to you. You do not need to know the how. The bridge of incidents will unfold. Your part is only to remain faithful to the end. So tonight, dare to imagine more boldly. See yourself already in possession of what you long for. Feel it real. Walk in that state with confidence, for the outer world must echo the inner conviction. You must have faith not as a passive hope, but as a living certainty. Faith is your only bridge from the unseen to the seen, from desire to fulfillment, from dream to reality. Faith is assumption, not hope, for hope waits while faith claims. Hope lingers in the future, but faith pulls the future into the now. To hope is to wish that something may happen, but to assume is to know that it already has. Faith wears the desire like a garment and lives from it as though it were the most natural thing in the world. It does not ask, it does not plead, it simply accepts. The power lies in this acceptance, for what the mind assumes as real, the subconscious must externalize and bring forth as fact. The unseen becomes seen through faith, because faith is the bridge between imagination and reality. Everything visible today was once only a vision held in the unseen realm of thought. The house, the book, the invention, the relationship, all were first unseen, carried only within the mind of the one who dared to believe in them. Faith is not waiting for evidence to appear. It is the bold conviction that the evidence already exists in the invisible. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are dwelling in the unseen state. Yet this unseen is more real than the transient facts of the outer world. Facts change, appearances shift, but the inner state sustained by faith persists until it hardens into form. Faith does not require explanation or visible signs to justify its certainty. It lives in quiet confidence, knowing the outer must conform. To believe before seeing is to align yourself with the creative law that governs all manifestation. The unseen becomes seen, because faith holds unwavering to the inner image, refusing to surrender it to doubt or appearances. And by the law of assumption, what is faithfully imagined must be expressed. Faith does not wait for proof. It is the proof. For faith itself is the evidence of things unseen, and the assurance of things hoped for. To wait for visible confirmation is to deny the very principle of faith, because faith precedes the manifestation and gives birth to it. When you insist that something must first appear before you believe it, you are binding yourself to the limitations of the senses. But when you dare to believe without sight, when you assume without reason, you are living in the creative power that shapes all outcomes. Faith carries within it the reality of the thing desired. It is not empty wishing. It is the possession of the unseen before the senses acknowledge it. The one who walks by faith does not need outer signs, for the inner conviction is enough. To feel the wish fulfilled, to dwell in the end as though it were present, is already proof of its existence on a deeper level of reality. The world may laugh and call it delusion, but the world itself is built upon the same law. Every fact you now see was once unseen. Faith, therefore, is not passive. It is active. It is creation in motion. By assuming the state and persisting in it, you have already proven the truth to yourself, regardless of appearances. Faith stands as its own evidence. It declares, "It is done," long before the eyes can verify it. In this declaration lies the secret of transformation, for what is inwardly assumed must eventually be outwardly expressed. To possess faith is to hold in your hands the invisible seed that will, by its very nature, grow into the visible harvest, needing no further proof than your unwavering conviction. Clothe yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. For in this act lies the secret of creation. You do not wait for the outer world to grant you permission to feel what you desire. You dare to feel it now, as though it were already true. Just as you put on a garment and wear it until it becomes part of you, so too must you put on the state of your desire and live from it until it feels natural. The outer world will only mirror what you inwardly accept as your reality. So the transformation begins not with action, but with assumption. To clothe yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is to bypass the doubts of reason and the contradictions of appearance. The senses may tell you it is not yet here, but faith whispers otherwise. When you wear the state of fulfillment in imagination, you are rehearsing the very reality that must, by law, solidify around you. The subconscious accepts whatever you persist in feeling, and once accepted, it reorganizes all events, circumstances, and conditions to match the inner assumption. Do not make the mistake of thinking this is mere daydreaming. Daydreams are idle pictures that fade, but assumption is conviction dressed in feeling. When you dwell in the end, you are no longer asking, will it come, but declaring inwardly, it is here. This shift from wanting to having is the key that unlocks manifestation. Like an actor who wears the role until it becomes real, you too must wear the state of your desire until it defines your very being. Every great change in life begins with someone who dared to imagine differently and remained faithful to that inner clothing. You cannot wear rags in consciousness and expect robes in experience. If you would see wealth, health, love, or success, then put on the feeling of already possessing it. Walk in it, breathe in it, think from it, and let the world respond to your new identity. The garment you choose within becomes the life you walk without, for the invisible attire of feeling is the blueprint of your destiny. Wishing looks outward, faith looks inward, for wishing depends on circumstances, people, and events to bring about fulfillment, while faith rests entirely upon the unseen power within. When you wish, you secretly confess that what you desire is distant, uncertain, or perhaps even impossible. Wishing leaves you as a beggar before life, hoping that somehow the outer world will grant you what you long for. But faith turns from the outer altogether and anchors itself in imagination, knowing that the inner world is the true cause of all that is seen. The one who wishes keeps their eyes fixed on appearances, measuring possibility by the evidence of the senses. If the facts do not support the desire, they conclude it cannot be attained. Yet the facts are never final, they are only the outpicturing of past assumptions. To live in wishing is to chain yourself to shadows, always waiting for something beyond yourself to move. But to live in faith is to recognize that the creative power lies within you, and that assumption is the only key to transformation. Faith does not ask, when will it happen? Faith declares, it is done. It does not stretch its hands outward in hope. It rests inwardly in certainty. To turn within is to acknowledge that imagination creates reality. What you inwardly accept as true, though unseen by the eyes, must in time appear as fact. This is why faith is not idle dreaming but conscious creation. It withdraws attention from the lack and places it firmly upon fulfillment, clothing itself in the feeling of already having. When you wish, you are divided. You hold the desire in one hand and the lack in the other, never letting go of contradiction. Faith eliminates division by assuming the end as the only reality. Wishing says, I want it one day. Faith says, I have it now. This difference in attitude is the difference between endless longing and actual manifestation. To cultivate faith, you must practice the art of inward assumption. Each time the mind wanders to lack, gently return to the inner scene where your desire is already realized. Feel the relief, the joy, the naturalness of its fulfillment. Persist in this inward conviction until it becomes more real to you than the evidence of the senses. Life must then rearrange itself to reflect your faith. The outward world is but a mirror, and wishing merely stares at the mirror in dissatisfaction. Faith reshapes the inner self and allows the mirror to display a new reflection. Stop looking outward for signs and start looking inward for certainty. The moment you choose to stand in faith, you withdraw power from appearances and give authority to imagination. And in that shift, the unseen begins to take form before your very eyes. The subconscious accepts what feels natural, for it does not argue, question, or analyze. It simply receives and reproduces the impressions given to it. Whatever you consistently feel as real, whether good or bad, desired or feared, becomes the pattern by which your life is shaped. This is why effort and struggle often fail, while quiet assumption succeeds. The subconscious responds not to the force of will, but to the ease of acceptance. The moment something feels natural to you, it has already been impressed upon the deeper mind, and from that moment forward, it begins to express itself in your outer world. This is the great secret of creation. The subconscious cannot distinguish between what is fact and what is vividly assumed. If you dwell in lack but try to convince yourself through words alone that you are abundant, the subconscious will not be moved, for it is not words it obeys, but feelings. Yet, if you enter into the state of abundance in imagination and dwell in it until it feels ordinary, the subconscious takes it as truth and sets in motion all necessary conditions for its manifestation. What feels natural today becomes your reality tomorrow. Consider how habits form. At first they are deliberate, even uncomfortable, but through repetition they become second nature. The same law governs assumption. To imagine a new state may feel forced in the beginning, but if you persist, soon it becomes effortless, familiar, and natural. The subconscious then embraces it without resistance, and life reflects it back, as though it had always been that way. This is why persistence is essential. You must remain faithful to the inner state until it no longer feels like a performance, but like your identity. The subconscious is the soil, and feeling is the seed. You can not plant one thing and expect another to grow. If you plant feelings of fear, doubt, or lack, then circumstances will inevitably echo those vibrations. But if you sow the feeling of fulfillment, confidence, and joy, the harvest will reflect that inner climate. The subconscious accepts whatever seed is sown without judgment, so you must become the master gardener of your inner world, choosing deliberately which states you will allow to feel natural. To live deliberately is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in it until it is no longer a hope, but a settled reality within. Imagine yourself already in possession of your desire, not as a distant dream, but as a present fact. Feel the relief, the gratitude, the satisfaction, and let those feelings become as ordinary as breathing. When you walk in that state, the subconscious registers it as your true condition and organizes your world accordingly. Every transformation begins in this unseen realm of feeling. The outer world is nothing more than the subconscious pushed out, a mirror reflecting back to you the states you have most naturally assumed. To change your life, you must change what you accept as natural within yourself. Shift from the old state to the new. Persist until the new feels normal, and your subconscious will accept it without resistance. Once accepted, no power in the world can prevent its expression. For what feels natural to you inwardly must inevitably become your experience outwardly. The how is not your concern. Faith handles it. Because the moment you claim your desire in imagination, the creative power within you begins to weave the threads of unseen events into the tapestry of your life. When you burden yourself with the question of how, you step away from the role of creator and enter the role of doubter. Faith is the assurance that the end is secured, regardless of appearances, and when the end is assumed, the means are silently set in motion. You do not need to control the channels through which fulfillment comes. You need only to rest in the feeling that it already is. Look at nature, and you will see this principle illustrated. The seed knows how to become a tree, though the gardener does not. He only plants and waters it, trusting the hidden intelligence to handle the process. In the same way, when you assume the wish fulfilled, you plant the seed in the fertile ground of the subconscious. From that moment, the invisible law takes over. It draws to you people, places, opportunities, and circumstances, orchestrating them with a precision your conscious mind could never calculate. The demand to know, how, is nothing but resistance, for it is rooted in fear that perhaps nothing is happening. But faith stands still, confident that everything necessary is already unfolding. You can recall times when life delivered outcomes you could not have planned. A so-called coincidence, a chance meeting, a sudden shift, These were not accidents, but the working out of an inner state. What you had impressed upon your subconscious had no choice but to externalize, and the bridge of incidents appeared in ways you could not foresee. Faith does not chase after details, it holds firmly to the end, and by holding the end, it compels the means to appear. The how belongs to divine order. It is handled through currents that move beneath the surface of awareness. To interfere by trying to plan every step is to choke the seed before it sprouts. When you release the how, you are not abandoning responsibility. You are exercising trust in the law that imagination creates reality. You are saying, my work is to live in the end, and life will handle the unfolding. This is the greatest relief, because you no longer waste energy in anxiety over paths and possibilities. You become anchored in the state of fulfillment, and from that place, action flows naturally, not from worry but from inspiration. Faith is not idleness, it is alignment. It does not demand that you sit still, but it ensures that whatever actions you take are perfectly timed and effective. You will be moved to do things, to speak words, to take steps, but these will feel effortless and guided, as though the way was already prepared. The mind that frets over how acts in desperation, but the mind that rests in faith acts with calm assurance. One strains, the other flows, one scatters energy, the other directs it with power. Life is a stage upon which infinite forces move unseen, arranging themselves in response to your inner assumptions. The actor does not worry about the lights, the curtains, or the music. He trusts the stage crew to handle their part while he remains faithful to his role. Likewise, your role is to embody the state of the wish fulfilled, to think from it, feel from it, and walk in it as though it were the most natural thing in the world. The unseen power handles everything else, and when the scene plays out, it will seem as though it could not have happened in any other way. Therefore, release the how. It is not yours to carry. Stand firm in the end, clothe yourself in its feeling, and know that once assumed, the process has already begun. The unseen wisdom that sustains the stars, that orders the tides, that turns seeds into forests, is the same wisdom that knows how to fulfill your desire. Faith handles it, and when you allow it, the how will unfold with such perfection that you will marvel at its simplicity and grace live in the state of fulfillment until it manifests. For this is the essence of the law of assumption and the key to conscious creation. You are not called to beg for what you want, nor to wait for some distant day when conditions will be right. You are called to claim the end now, to feel it real within yourself, and to remain faithful to that inner conviction until it takes form. The outer world is nothing but the shadow of your inner state, so if you wish to change what you see, you must first change what you occupy within. To live in the state of fulfillment is to dwell in imagination, as though the desire were already complete. It is to walk, speak, and think from the end rather than about the end. Most live in constant longing, always placing their desire in the future, saying, one day I will have it, one day I will be it. But one day never comes, for the future is only a projection of the present state. The only moment you ever possess is now, and if you would see a different tomorrow, you must assume it now. Fulfillment is not postponed, it is chosen in this present moment of consciousness. This does not mean you deny the facts of the outer world, but it does mean you refuse to be bound by them. Appearances are only past assumptions made visible. They are the echo of what you once accepted as natural, and if they do not please you, you need not fight them. You simply withdraw your attention from them and place it upon the new state you wish to see. By dwelling in the end, you plant a new seed, and though the harvest may not be instant, it is inevitable if you persist. The state of fulfillment must feel real to you. This is why Neville taught the importance of imagination and feeling. Words alone will not impress the subconscious. It is the feeling of being the person you desire to be, or having the thing you desire to have, that leaves the imprint. When you imagine yourself already successful, loved, healthy, or abundant, and you allow that feeling to saturate your mind until it seems natural, the subconscious accepts it as truth. From that moment, life reorganizes itself to reflect the new state, and circumstances begin to unfold in alignment with your inner conviction. To live in fulfillment is to move beyond wishing and hoping. Wishing looks outward, always aware of the absence. Hoping pushes the desire into the future, always waiting for some sign. But fulfillment looks inward and claims the desire as already accomplished. It does not say, I will have it, but I have it now. The difference may seem subtle, but it is the difference between endless waiting and actual manifestation. Persistence is the great test. The outer world may still echo the old state for a time, and it is here that many falter. They look at appearances, conclude nothing has changed, and return to their former assumptions. But the one who remains faithful, who continues to live in fulfillment despite appearances, is the one who sees the promise realized. Persistence is not strain, it is quiet confidence, the steady returning of attention to the inner end. Just as a seed needs time to grow, so too does an assumption need time to solidify. If you do not abandon it, it must express. You may ask, how long must I persist? The answer is until it feels natural. The moment the state of fulfillment becomes ordinary to you, as though it has always been yours, the subconscious has accepted it fully. Once accepted, nothing can prevent its outward expression. The bridge of incidents will appear, sometimes in the most unexpected ways, guiding you step by step toward the realization of your desire. When the manifestation comes, it will often feel so natural that you will barely recall how unusual it once seemed to assume it. To live in the state of fulfillment is not escapism, it is true realism. For imagination is the root of reality. What you inwardly occupy today becomes the fact of tomorrow. By living in the end, you are aligning yourself with the creative law of life, which does not respond to idle wishing, but to vivid assumption. If you can dwell in the end, refusing to be swayed by doubt, fear, or appearances, you are guaranteeing the result. Every great achievement, every transformation, every miracle recorded in history has come from someone who dared to live in fulfillment before the evidence appeared. They walked in the unseen with certainty until the unseen became visible. This same power lies within you. You need not wait for circumstances to improve or for others to change. You need only to choose your state, inhabit it, and persist in it until it manifests. The world is your mirror, and it cannot help but reflect the state you most consistently embody. Therefore, live in the state of fulfillment, not as a fleeting exercise, but as a way of being. Return to it morning and night, clothe yourself in it throughout the day, and when doubts arise, gently turn again to the end. By doing this, you align yourself with the law, and the law must respond. The state you occupy inwardly will inevitably be the life you experience outwardly, for consciousness alone is reality, and what you dare to assume as true must one day stand before you as fact. Faith is the bridge between desire and reality, for without it the longing of the heart remains only a dream, distant and unreal, but with faith the unseen becomes tangible, and the imagined becomes fact. Faith does not wait for conditions to align, nor does it measure possibilities by appearances. It declares the end accomplished, even when every sense denies it. Faith is the inner certainty that the state assumed in imagination already exists, and by dwelling in that assurance you construct the invisible bridge that carries you from the realm of desire to the realm of manifestation. Desire alone is not enough. Many people desire but never receive, not because the desire is impossible, but because they never cross the bridge of faith. They stand at the edge, gazing at the vision of what they want, yet refusing to walk across the only path that leads to it. Desire points the way, but faith carries you there. It is the invisible act of assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, holding it so firmly that the outer world must conform. Faith is not blind hope. Hope waits and wishes, but faith knows and lives as though it were already true. Hope says, perhaps one day. Faith says, it is already done. This difference is vital, for the subconscious responds not to uncertainty but to conviction. When you enter into the end in imagination, when you feel yourself already in possession of your desire, you impress the subconscious with that state, and once impressed, it begins to rearrange your world in ways you could not have planned. The bridge of incidents is set into motion, leading you step by step toward the fulfillment of your assumption. This is why Neville Goddard insisted that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The evidence does not appear first, it follows faith. To wait for signs before you believe is to reverse the order of creation. The world is the mirror, not the cause, and it cannot reflect what you have not first assumed within. By faith you carry yourself across the gap between what you long for and what you live in. And once you are inwardly established in fulfillment, the outer world must echo it. The bridge of faith is built entirely within imagination. Every thought, every feeling, every assumption is a step across it. If you remain in doubt, if you linger in questioning, you never set foot on the bridge. But if you dare to occupy the end with confidence, if you clothe yourself in the feeling of already being the person you want to be, or already having the thing you desire, then you have already crossed in consciousness. The outer journey is only the unfolding of what has already been accomplished inwardly. Think of the countless times in life when things seemed impossible until they were done. How often have you looked back and realized that a chain of so-called coincidences carried you exactly where you needed to be? This is faith at work, whether consciously applied or not. You assumed, even lightly, that something would happen, and the unseen law guided you across the bridge. When you understand this consciously, you can apply it deliberately, no longer leaving outcomes to chance but shaping them with intention. To live by faith is to trust the unseen law more than the evidence of the senses. It is to walk in the assurance that what is held within must be expressed without. You need not know the steps nor control the timing, for faith handles the how and the when. Your part is only to remain faithful to the end. If you falter, if you let appearances sway you, you wander from the bridge. But the moment you return to assumption, the bridge is there, waiting to carry you forward. Faith requires persistence. The outer world may still reflect the old state for a time, and in this delay many abandon their assumption. But persistence proves faith. To remain in the end, regardless of appearances, is to hold firmly to the bridge until it delivers you to the other side. The world cannot resist the pressure of sustained assumption. It must yield, for consciousness is the only reality, and what you assume with conviction will harden into fact. Faith is not only the bridge from desire to fulfillment, but also the assurance that there is no true distance between them. The desire itself is evidence of its possibility. For you could not long for what does not already exist in potential. The gap is only in consciousness, and faith closes it. When you dare to assume that you already are what you long to be, the separation dissolves, and you realize the bridge was only the means of bringing you to the recognition of what was always yours. To cultivate faith, begin by withdrawing attention from lack and fixing it upon fulfillment. Imagine yourself already in possession of your desire. Feel the relief, the joy, the satisfaction. Return to it again and again until it feels natural. As you persist, the subconscious accepts it as real, and from that moment the bridge of incidents unfolds. The outer world must adjust, not because you forced it, but because you aligned inwardly with the law. Faith is the great secret, the golden link between the unseen and the seen, between the dream and its realization. Without it, desire remains a wish, but with it, desire becomes reality. Faith is not a fragile hope, but the living certainty that what is assumed is already accomplished. It is the bridge you must cross if you would transform longing into experience. And once crossed, you will see that the world has no choice but to mirror back the state you dared to sustain. Within yourself, dare to imagine boldly and remain faithful. For imagination is the creative force of life, and faith is the power that sustains it until it takes form. The world you see today is not fixed or final. It is the crystallized result of yesterday's assumptions, hardened into fact by persistence of belief. To change your world, you must dare to change what you accept inwardly. You must dare to imagine greater, higher, and nobler states of being. And once imagined, you must remain faithful to them until they become as natural to you as the air you breathe. Most people imagine timidly. They limit themselves by reason, by appearances, and by the opinions of others. They shrink their vision to what seems practical or possible, never realizing that practicality is only yesterday's bold imagining made visible. Everything around you, from the chair you sit on to the cities you live in, was once the bold imagination of someone who dared to envision what was not yet seen. To imagine boldly is to free yourself from the prison of appearances and step into the creative workshop of the mind, where all things are possible. To imagine boldly means to see yourself already in possession of your desire, no matter how impossible it may appear. It means to accept the end as though it were present fact, to enter into it in imagination so fully that it stirs your emotions and awakens a sense of reality within you. It is not idle daydreaming, but a deliberate act of creation, for when you clothe yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you impress it upon the subconscious, and once impressed, it must be expressed. But imagining boldly is not enough by itself, you must also remain faithful. Faithfulness is the key that carries the vision from imagination into manifestation. Many begin with bold imaginings, but when appearances contradict them, they abandon their vision. They look at the facts and conclude that nothing is happening, not realizing that appearances are only the echo of past assumptions. The new state, once assumed, requires persistence. Faithfulness means returning again and again to the end, no matter what the senses say, until the feeling of fulfillment becomes natural and effortless. To remain faithful is to discipline your inner conversations, your reactions, and your attention. If you imagine boldly in a quiet moment, but spend the rest of your day doubting, fearing, or complaining, you are undoing your own work. Faithfulness means you hold the inner image steady, refusing to betray it with contradictory thoughts. It does not mean you never feel doubt, but it means you return quickly to the vision, reaffirming its reality until it dominates your consciousness. Consider how an actor remains faithful to a role. He studies it, rehearses it, and lives in it until it becomes second nature. He does not step on stage still wondering if he is the character. He has already assumed it within himself, and so the audience sees it outwardly. In the same way, you must play your chosen role inwardly until the world reflects it back to you. The boldness of imagination writes the script, and faithfulness to the role ensures the performance is carried out. The law of assumption does not require effort in the outer world. It requires persistence in the inner world. Your only task is to live in the end until it feels real, and then let life arrange itself to match. The how is not your concern, for faith handles it. The bridge of incidents will appear naturally, leading you step by step to the fulfillment of your assumption. The events may look ordinary, but when you look back, you will see they were perfectly arranged to bring about the desired outcome. Daring to imagine boldly also requires courage, for the bold imagination often contradicts what is currently visible. To imagine wealth in the midst of lack, health in the face of sickness, or love where there is loneliness, is to defy the evidence of the senses. The world may call it foolishness, but the world itself was built upon such foolishness. Every breakthrough, every invention, every transformation was once ridiculed as impossible. To dare to imagine boldly is to stand firm in the unseen and trust that the unseen is more real than the visible. Remaining faithful demands patience, but not the passive patience of waiting. It is the active patience of dwelling in fulfillment now, knowing that the outer must conform. When doubts arise, you gently return to the end. When appearances contradict, you remind yourself they are shadows of the old state, not evidence against the new. Faithfulness means you no longer measure progress by outer signs, but by the steadiness of your inner conviction. You may wonder how long you must persist. The answer is until it feels natural. The moment your imagined state becomes your normal state of consciousness, the subconscious has accepted it fully. At that point, manifestation is certain, for the outer world cannot resist the pressure of an inner state that feels real. It will express itself in ways so seamless that you may forget how unnatural it once seemed to imagine it. The bold imagination is the spark, and faithfulness is the fuel that keeps it alive until it manifests. Together they form the creative process by which all things are made. Without bold imagination, you remain bound by appearances, repeating the same patterns endlessly. Without faithfulness, your vision withers before it bears fruit. But when you combine the two, when you dare to imagine the highest and remain faithful to it regardless of appearances, you harness the true creative power within you. Life itself is urging you to imagine more boldly, to expand beyond the limits you have unconsciously set, and to remain faithful to the vision until it becomes your lived reality. You are not here to accept the world as it is, but to reshape it by assuming new states of consciousness. Every desire is a call to rise higher, to step into a greater version of yourself. If you dare to imagine it, you can assume it, and if you remain faithful, you must experience it. Therefore, let your imagination soar without restraint. See yourself already in possession of every good thing you desire. Walk in the joy, the freedom, the love, and the abundance of that fulfilled state. And when doubts come, do not yield to them. Return again and again to the vision, for faithfulness is the proof of your conviction. The world cannot deny the one who persists, and it cannot resist the pressure of sustained assumption. Dare to imagine boldly and remain faithful, for in this daring and in this faith lies the secret of all creation, and the key to transforming desire into reality.